Hello guys, welcome back. In this video, I will create a production ready Jenkins master server and also add a dynamic Jenkins slave server. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is how I'm going to build the infrastructure on AWS. The first thing I'm going to build going to be a VPC. And after building my VPC, I'm going to create the internet gateway and attach it to my VPC. Then I'm going to create 4 subnets, 3 public one and 1 private. And the public subnet will be the one used for my Bastion host, the one used for my load balancer, and the one used for my NAT gateway. And the private subnet will be only for my Jenkins master server. So let's jump and start building it. But before we start building, I want to say that I'm going to add a Bastion host because my Jenkins master would be a private instance. That means no public IP address, no access to internet unless through a NAT gateway or a Bastion host. So let's start. Let me bring the AWS console. Then I'm going to go to VPC. To create the VPC, we can click over here, create VPC, or we can come on your VPCs, then click on create VPC. Over here, I'm going to name my VPC Jenkins-VPC. I'm going to give it a IP range 192.168.0.0/16. I'm going to leave the tenancy as default and I'm going to click on create VPC. If I click again on your VPCs, you guys are going to see that we have a new VPC. The next thing I'm going to do is to create an internet gateway. So I'm going to come to internet gateways and click. Then I'm going to come over here and click on create internet gateway. I'm going to name it Jenkins-internet gateway. And I'm going to click on create internet gateway. To attach my internet gateway to my VPC, I can click on attach to a VPC right here, or I can come to actions and click on attach to VPC. Then over here, I'm going to select my VPC. It's going to be Jenkins VPC. And I'm going to attach internet gateway. So I'm good with internet gateway. The next thing is to create the subnets. As I said, we have 4 of them. So we're going to come to subnets and we're going to click on create subnet. We need to select the proper VPC. So we're going to select the VPC ID for Jenkins-VPC. And my first subnet going to be the load balancer subnet. And I'm going to put it into US East 2B. That is very important. I'm going to put the seed at 192.168.1.0/24. This availability zone will be important when we're going to create our Jenkins master server. It needs to be in the same availability zone as the load balancer. So I'm going to add a new subnet and I'm going to call it Bastion subnet. I'm going to put it in US East 2A, and I'm going to do 192.168.2.0/24. The next subnet going to be the private one, the Jenkins subnet, and I'm going to put it in the same availability zone as the load balancer. So it's going to be US East 2B. US East 2B. I'm going to give the CEDAR or the IP range. Then the last one going to be the NAT subnet, and I'm going to put it to the last availability zone, US East 2C. I'm going to do 192.168.4, I guess, .0/24, and I'm going to click on create subnet. Now I do have my subnet and they are attached to my VPC. So the next thing I'm going to do is to create the NAT gateway. To do that, I'm going to come to NAT gateways. Then I'm going to click on create NAT gateway. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it NAT. I'm going to select the subnet. Make sure that you select the NAT subnet. The connectivity tab going to be public, and as you see, we have a elastic IP address. If you don't have it, just click over here, allocate elastic IP. I'm going to select my elastic IP address. Then I'm going to scroll down and click on create NAT gateway. Now that I'm done with my NAT gateway, I'm going to come back to the route table. We need to create a public route and a private route. That means when we have instance on a public subnet and they want access to internet, they can access internet through the internet gateway. But the private instance, in order to access internet, they need to go through the NAT gateway, and the NAT gateway route going to be the private one. The internet gateway route will be the public one. So let's go and click on route table, create a route table, name it Jenkins, have a public route table. I'm going to select my VPC and I'm going to click on create. Now on the routes, edit routes, I'm going to add a new route. The destination is going to be internet, and it's going to be, since it's a public route, it's going to go through the internet gateway, and I select my internet gateway. That's going to be Jenkins -internet gateway. I save it. Then I'm going to select all the public subnet. I'm going to click on subnet associations. I'm going to click on edit subnet, and I'm going to select all the public subnet, and I'm going to click save. We are done with the public route table. I'm going to create the private route table. I'm going to do the same thing, create route table, name it Jenkins. This time it's going to be private route table. Select the proper VPC and click on create route table. We said that the private instance go through the NAT gateway to access to internet. So the routes, we're going to come and edit the route, and we're going to add a new route. When we want to go to internet, we have to go through the NAT gateway. We're going to select the proper NAT gateway, and we're going to save the change. Then we're going to associate the private subnets. So we're going to come over here, subnet associations, edit subnet association, and we only have one private subnet, so we're going to select it and we're going to save the association. Now we are done with a public and private route, as you can see. The next thing we're going to do is to create security group. Let me bring back the graph. We're going to have three main security group. The first one going to be how we can access the Bastion host. We only need to access the Bastion host through SSH from anywhere. And inside the Bastion host, the only thing we can do is to SSH to the Jenkins Master. That's it. So the Jenkins Master will accept traffic from the Bastion host or the Bastion subnet. And as you can see this arrow, the Jenkins Master server will also accept traffic from the load balancer. And the Jenkins Master can talk to the NAT. And for the load balancer, we want the load balancer to accept traffic from anywhere using HTTP and HTTPS. And it's going to redirect that traffic to the Jenkins Master subnet. So let's go ahead and start creating those subnet, those security groups, sorry. So I'm going to come over here on the security and I'm going to click on security groups. Then I'm going to click on security group. I'm going to create my first one. It's going to be load balancer security group. I'm going to name it load balancer security group. Let's uncheck this one and select the proper VPC. For now, don't worry about the inbound rules or the outbound rules for now. Let's add a new tag and we're going to call it name uppercase N, and it's going to be load balancer security group. Click on create. We're going to click on security group again and repeat the process. Create security group. This time we're going to call it Bastion security group. We're going to call it Bastion security group. Some people call the Bastion a jump server or a jump host, so it's the same thing. We're going to select the proper VPC, and as I said, don't worry about this one. We're going to add a new tag. It's going to be name, and the value will be Bastion security group. Click on create, and we click again on security groups right here, and we repeat again, create security group. The last one going to be Jenkins security group. I'm going to call it again Jenkins security group. Uncheck this one and select the proper VPC. Since this is the last security group, you can start editing inbound and outbound roles. So we said that since this is a security group of a Jenkins server, we want Jenkins server to accept traffic from the Bastion host. So we're going to come over here, we go in inbound role, we're going to add a new role. We're going to say it can accept SSH traffic from the Bastion host. So we're going to select the Bastion security group. The other role will be that it can accept a traffic coming from port 8080 on port 8080 coming from the load balancer. And the outbound, we're going to leave it as it is, all traffic. So let's click on create security group. So now we're going to go back on security groups and we're going to edit the Bastion security group. As you can see, the inbound, there's nothing. We're going to come over here and click on edit inbound roles. We're going to add a new role that's going to be SSH from anywhere. And the outbound role, we're going to edit it as well. We're going to delete this one and we're going to say my job server or my Bastion host can only SSH to a Jenkins server or Jenkins servers. So I'm going to select Jenkins security group and save it. So we are done with the Bastion host. The last one to add is going to be the load balancer. As the inbound rules, there's nothing, so we need to edit it. I'm going to add a new rule saying that we can use HTTP from anywhere. That is the first rule. The second rule is going to be secure, HTTP secure. So it's going to be HTTPS from anywhere and save it. The outbound rule is going to say all and we don't want it. We only want our load balancers to connect to our Jenkins master server. That's it, right? So we're going to delete the outbound rule and add a new rule. That's going to be TCP and it's going to be on port 8080 and it's going to connect to the Jenkins server. So we're going to add Jenkins security group. That's all. We save it. So now we are done with security groups. The next thing is to create a Bastion host server and a Jenkins server. Let's start with by going to services, then EC2. Then we're going to click on launch instance, then click again on launch instance. Over here, I'm going to call my first instance, it's going to be the Bastion 1. And I'm going to come over here, click over here and put CentOS-7. And I'm going to go over AWS Marketplace, AMI. And I'm going to select this one. Continue. I have the CentOS 7 AMI now. I'm going to leave the instance type as T2 macro. And I'm going to select my key pair. It's going to be an IL1. If you don't have one, you can create one using this one. For the network, I'm going to edit it because I'm not using the default VPC. So since I'm not using the default one, I'm going to select the proper VPC. And I also have to select the proper subnet. That's going to be the Bastion subnet. And I'm going to make sure that the auto assign public IP is enabled. On firewall, I'm going to use the proper security group and I'm going to click on select existing security group. And I'm going to select the Bastion security group. Now, everything can stay the same. So I'm going to click on launch instance. So our instance is launched. I can go back to instances and repeat the process. I'm going to do launch instance. As I said, I'm going to create a new instance. I'm going to click on name. I'm going to call it Jenkins. And I'm going to select the same AMI CentOS space 7. I have my proper AMI, but on the instance type, I'm going to change it because T2 micro is only 1 CPU and 1 gig of memory. But what we want to do with Jenkins is going to be a little bit heavy. So I'm going to change it and I'm going to put T2 that 2x large. It's going to be 8 CPU and 32 gig of memory. And I'm going to select, you can select another key pair, but I'm going to select the same one. On the network settings, I'm going to edit it, select the proper VPC, select the proper subnet. It's going to be the Jenkins subnet, and make sure that auto assign public IP address is disabled. After making sure that the auto assign public IP address is disabled, I'm going to go on firewall or security group and select existing group. Then I'm going to select the Jenkins security group. The rest can stay unchanged, and I click on launch instance. I'm going to go back to EC2 and click on instance runnings, and I'm going to click on, I have only one running right now. If I refresh it, you're going to see that it's only the Bastion running. I'm going to click on instance ID, then click on connect. Then I'm going to copy this one and I'm going to open a terminal. Make sure that you CD where you have your key, or if you don't want to do that as I, you can use SSH -agent, then you do SSH -add, you add your key. I did that already, so I don't need to SSH to where I have my key. I'm just going to put this one right there and paste it. Sorry, I'm going to remove the user because I'm using CentOS 7, and on AMI using CentOS 7, the default user is CentOS. And also I'm going to remove my key because I already add the key to the SSH. So I'm just going to use -A, and I'm going to press enter. Then I'm going to say yes. I am logged in to, let me make it a little bit bigger. I'm logged into my Bastion host. Now the next thing is to SSH to the Jenkins server, and you can see over here the Jenkins server is running. I'm going to click on instance ID, then I'm going to click on connect, and I'm going to copy this one. I'm going to bring back my terminal, and I'm going to paste it, but I'm going to change again the user. The user is CentOS, and I'm going to press enter. I'm going to say yes, and I'm logged in to my Jenkins server. How do I know that? You guys can see your IP address right here, and if you check it, you're going to see that we have the same numbers over here, so we are good. What I'm going to do is to be the root. I'm going to do sudo -i. The next thing is to install our Jenkins application into our Jenkins server. So I open my GitHub repository where I have the steps to install our Jenkins server. So I'm going to put my terminal and this side by side. So I'm going to go to my GitHub repository and I'm going to start the installation. I have to install Java first. So I'm going to press on yes. By the way, if you use Amazon Linux, you can use these steps, but I don't want to use them because I'm using CentOS 7. The next thing is to make sure that Java is properly installed. I'm going to do Java space -version, and we can see that our Java is installed. I'm going to clear everything, then install wget. Then the next thing is going to be downloading binaries. Then after doing this, I'm going to upgrade everything. Upgrading going to take a little bit of time, so I'm going to pause the video, then I'm going to come back. And we are back. It is done upgrading. The next thing I'm going to do is to install our Jenkins. So we're going to copy this one and paste it. By the way, we are able to download and install or upgrade our Jenkins server because we are using the NAT gateway. Without the NAT gateway, you will not be able to do what we are doing right now. So I'm going to paste the next command, and I'm going to start the Jenkins. It's going to take a little bit of time to start the Jenkins. And I'm going to enable it so that the next time the server restart is going to be up and running as well. Just to make sure that everything is running, I'm going to clear this one first. Then I'm going to do system ctl status Jenkins, and as you can see, it says active, running, and it is enabled. So the next to the open or port AD using firewall roles, you can do that if you are not using AWS, but we took care of it using security group. And you can add certificate as well, but I'm not going to use these steps to add certificate. I'm going to use AWS steps to add a certificate. So we are good, but here's the thing. We don't have access to Jenkins UI because it's the private instance, so we cannot use the private API and put it on internet. I have access to the UI. So the next thing is to add a load balancer. So we're going to go back. Let me make this one bigger again and go back over here. I'm going to go back to EC2, and under load balancing, I'm going to click on load balancer. Then I'm going to click on create load balancer. I'm going to use an application load balancer so that we can have access to our Jenkins UI. I'm going to click on create. I'm going to call it load balancer. It's going to be internet facing, and I'm only going to use IP version 4. Over here, I'm going to select the proper VPC, and I'm going to select all the subnet. Make sure that you select the public subnets when you select the availability zones. And I'm going to uncheck the default security group and check the load balancer security group. Let's start with HTTP first and make sure that everything is working fine before changing listener. And when we click over here, we don't have a target group, so we need to add target group. In order for us to do that, we're going to click on create target group. Our target group going to be instance type, and we're going to call it TG. And the port of which Jenkins is listening is 8080. And I'm going to add over here, you can leave this one like this, but I want it to hit the path/login. And I'm going to click on next. Then over here, I'm going to select the Jenkins Master Server and make sure that over here says 8080 and click on include as pending below. Then click on create target group. It says created. So we're going to go back over here and we're going to refresh this one. And when we do that, we're going to see our target group right here. So we select it and we click on create load balancer. Go on view load balancer. As you see, it says provisioning. It's going to take a little bit of time. So I'm going to pause the video and come back after it is active right here. So let's refresh it again and see if it's already active. I'm going to refresh it and it says active. So I'm going to click on the name LB. Then I'm going to take the DNS name, copy it and paste it right here. And we are able to access Jenkins using UI. But as you see right here, it says what? Not secure, and we are using the load balancer directly. But you want to use a DNS name, right? You want to use a domain name. And I have my domain called anayelebo.com, and I'm going to use it and create a subdomain called jenkins.anayelebo.com, and I want it to be secure. So the first thing I'm going to do is to go back to the console and click on services and click on certificate manager. So I'm going to create a TLS certificate. So I'm going to request a certificate and click over here next. I'm going to put my Jenkins.anayelebo. I'm going to put my subdomain, I'm going to put my subdomain jenkins.anayel.com, and I'm going to click on request. Then I'm going to click on view certificate. As you guys can see, it is pending. I'm going to click again on list certificates. Then click on certificate ID. Then over here, you're going to see create records in Route 53. I'm going to click on it. Let's come back, and it is issued, as you can see right here. So we are good. So the next thing I'm going to do is to go to services, go to EC2 and go to load balancer. Click on load balancer, and I'm going to click on my load balancer, and over here I'm going to check this one, and I'm going to go to manage listener, and I'm going to delete this one. I'm going to confirm it. Now I want my listener to be HTTPS, so I'm going to add listener. I'm going to change it to HTTPS. It's going to be 443 the port, and I'm going to use forward to target groups, and I'm going to select my target group. When I go down, I'm going to select my certificate, the one I just created earlier, and the certificate is named jenkins.anayelebo.com. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to click on add. I just add it. The next thing I'm going to do is that if somebody want to access my Jenkins through the UI using HTTP, it's going to be redirect to HTTPS. I'm going to do it using add listener. It's going to be HTTP and it's going to be port 80, and it's going to be I'm not going to use forward to target group, but I'm going to use redirect to URL, and the port going to be 443. Then I click on add. I'm done with updating my load balancer so that it can be secured. The next thing I'm going to do is to go to services and go to route 53 and click on hosted zone. I only have one hosted zone. It's going to be anayelebo.com, and I'm going to add a record. I'm going to click on create record, and I'm going to put my record. It's going to be Jenkins.anayelebo.com, and I'm going to click on alias, and the route traffic to an application load balancer, and the region going to be US East 2, and I'm going to select the load balancer, and I click on create record, and you can click on view status right here, and I'm going to keep refreshing until it says active. So I'm going to pause the video and come back when it says active. Wait, I came back and it is active or in sync, so we are good. Let me open this and put my subdomain jenkinsanayelebo.com. As you guys can see, we are able to access our Jenkins application and it is secure. If you click over here, you're going to see connection is secured. So we are good. The next thing we're going to do is to copy this one and go to the terminal, and we're going to do cut and paste it. I'm going to copy this one and paste it right here. I'm going to click on install suggested plugins, and I'm going to wait. I'm going to put the default username and default password. I'm putting a dummy email. I'm going to click on save and continue. This is the URL for my Jenkins server, and I click on save and finish. Then I click on start using Jenkins. Our Jenkins is ready and can be used now. And that is how we install a production ready Jenkins server. You may add more volume if you want. The next thing is to see how we can add a dynamic Jenkins slave, so that every time we have a job, when we call the labels, it's going to create a EC2 instance, run the job, and when the job is done, it's going to terminate that EC2 instance. It is saving us money, and that is the goal of dynamic slave. So the next thing I'm going to do is to go to AWS console, and I'm going to go to IAM. On the IAM, I'm going to create role, and I'm going to click on create role, and I'm going to use my role for the EC2. I'm going to click next. I'm going to call EC2. Sorry, EC2. I'm going to use Amazon EC2 full access. Click on it, then go all the way down and click on next. I'm going to call it Jenkins. If you want, AWS Role, and I'm going to click on create role. The role is created. Now I'm going to go back to services, EC2, and I'm going to attach the role to my Jenkins server. I'm going to go to instance running. I'm going to refresh it. I'm going to refresh it as you see, and I'm going to check my Jenkins server, and I'm going to go to actions, then security, then modify AMI role or IAM role. I'm going to select the Jenkins AWS role, and I'm going to click on update IAM role. That is the first thing to do so that our Jenkins server is able to create our Jenkins worker or Jenkins slave EC2 instance. That's the first thing. The next thing we're going to do is to create a slave or a worker, Jenkins worker EC2 instance security group. We're going to go to security groups, and we're going to click on create one. I'm going to call it slave. Let's call it slave. And I'm going to call it again slave. I'm going to uncheck this one and select the proper VPC. So as an inbound rule, we want our slave to accept SSH connection from the master. So we're going to do SSH on, it's going to be the protocol going to be TCP on port 2020, and we accept traffic from the Jenkins master. So it's going to be the Jenkins security group. So that is all for the inbound rule. For the outbound rule, we're going to leave it as it is, and we're going to click on create security group. But remember, what is the name? Slave. And I'm going to add a tag. I'm going to put name, and I'm going to put slave. You can put worker if you want. And I'm going to click on create security group. Now that my security group is created, I'm going to go back to my Jenkins UI, and I'm going to click on manage Jenkins. I'm going to click on plugins, and I'm going to install EC2. I'm going to search for EC2, and I'm going to install Amazon EC2 plugin. I'm going to click install without restart. And I'm going to click on go back to the top. So now I have to set up the worker on Jenkins. To do that, I'm going to go to manage Jenkins. Then I'm going to go to Node and Clouds, and I'm going to click on Clouds. Add a new cloud, and I'm going to add Amazon EC2. Over here, I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it AWS Cloud. I'm going to click on Use Profile Obtain Credentials because we already put the role. We attach the role to our Jenkins Master server. So we're going to click on this one. And the region going to be US East 2. And we don't have a key pair. So I'm going to click on Add. And then I'm going to click on Jenkins. And over here, I'm not going to use user with password. I'm going to use user name with private key because we are using private key to SSH to our Jenkins server. But if you are not using AWS, you can use user and password if you want. So I'm going to go as ID, I'm going to put CentOS. Description, I'm going to put CentOS. And the username is CentOS because our AMI is CentOS. Over here on private key, I'm gonna check on enter directly. Then I'm going to click on add. After doing that, I'm going to open my terminal and open a new tab, CD, where I have my keys, and I'm going to cut my key, and my key is NIL1. Then I'm going to copy this one, all, and I'm going to paste it right here. I'm just going to verify that everything looks good. Then I'm going to click on add. Then over here, I'm going to select it again. It's going to be CentOS, and I'm going to check for the connection. It said success. That is good. The next thing we're going to do is to add a AMI characteristic. So I'm going to click on add. I'm going to call it CentOS AMI. For the AMI ID, I'm going to go back to my AWS console, and I'm going to go back to EC2 instance running, and I'm going to select Jenkins, and I'm going to look for the Jenkins AMI. You can see over here, I'm going to select the same AMI ID. I'm going to come back to my terminal, and I'm going to paste it right here. The next thing, if you want, you can change the AMI owner or AMI user. I'm not going to do that. The next thing I'm going to change is going to be the instance type. We're just going to test it. So we're going to use T2 micro, right? For the availability zone, you can add it if you want. If you don't want, you may not add it, but me, I'm going to add it. It's going to be US East 2B. I want it to be created on US East 2B. The next thing I'm going to do is to put the security group. The security group, we name it slave. I'm going to put the name over here, slave. And for the Jenkins slave, I want the home directory to be -home -CentOS. And the users going to be CentOS. Under AMI tab, I want it to be Unix. I'm going to label my server as Jenkins 1. And for the usage, I want it to be used when the label expression matching this node. The other termination time is 30. I'm going to put 2. That means that after 2 minutes after the job is done and no job is created, the Jenkins slave will be terminated automatically. So I'm going to go back, I'm going to keep going with advanced. You can add user data if you want, the number of executor if you want, add the Java path if you want. But for me, I'm just going to add the subnet ID, sorry, for VPC. I'm going to select the same subnet as our Jenkins master, and it's going to be this subnet ID. I'm going to tag it. I'm going to give it a name, and I'm going to give it a value, Jenkins dynamic. Let's call it the dynamic. As a tag, I'm going to use name, and I'm going to use dynamic Jenkins slave. That is the tag I'm going to use, and I'm going to keep going down. For the number of instances, I'm not going to put anything. For the instance cap, I'm not going to put anything, and I don't want my worker or my slave to have a public IP, so I'm just going to leave it alone, and I'm going to leave it to private IP. And over here, host key verification strategy, I'm going to put off. But for security reason, you may put the check new hard, but I'm going to put off. Then I'm going to go down and click on apply and save. Now let's create a new job. I'm going to go to new item. I'm going to call it job 1. I'm going to use freestyle. I'm going to press OK. On restrict where this project can be run, I'm going to put the label. I think it was Jenkins 1. Let's see. Yes, it's label Jenkins 1 match 1 cloud. That is good. So the next thing, I'm going to go to build steps, and I'm going to select execute shell. I'm just going to pass just ls -als, right? Just one command. I'm going to click on apply and save. Now I'm going to put this one side by side. This one and this one side by side. I'm going to click on build now. And you guys going to see say pending. Jenkins doesn't have label called Jenkins 1. But if we go on dashboard and we go to manage Jenkins, node and clouds, we're going to see that we have a new provision right here. And if we click on it, we're going to see that it start provisioning a worker or a slave Jenkins server, and it's waiting. Let's do this. And if I uncheck this one over here, you're going to see that we have a new EC2 instance created called dynamic Jenkins slave, and it is pending. We just have to wait. Now it says running, so we just have to wait, right? And you're going to see over here is waiting to connect to the slave. So we just have to wait, and when it's going to be ready, it's going to connect. Let's just wait a little bit again. Now it is connecting. You guys see over here, connected. and now it is downloading all the dependencies needed to run a Jenkins job into the slave. So we don't need to install anything in the slave. It's gonna do, Jenkins Master gonna do all for us. As you can see, everything is good. If we go back to dashboard and we go back to our job, we're gonna see that our job is green check. That means everything went well. If I do console output, you're going to see that everything went well. And this is how we can have it. We can have our dynamic slave. Now that we have our dynamic slave and we are able to run our jobs, we're going to wait. The job is done, right? And the job is done, and let's wait like 2 minutes and see what's going to happen after 2 minutes. You just have to wait for 2 minutes. I'm not going to pause the video so that you guys can see what happened. Let's wait. Like it is 5:11 p.m. So let's wait to see what's going to happen at 5:13 or 14 p.m. Let's just wait a little bit, and you guys can see it says what? Shutting down. Why? Yeah. Shutting down. That is how it's going to terminate the dynamic Jenkins slave after the job is done, and it's going to terminate it after 2 minutes of idle. This is how we do that, and I hope that this project can help you build confidence, and you can use this project and do it yourself and expose it during the interview. I hope to see you next time. Please, if you like this video, subscribe and give it a thumbs up. Comment if you want me to get better. Comment and leave me some feedback. I will appreciate it. Thank you and see you next time. Peace.